The soft clink of a fork against a porcelain plate was the only thing that broke the spell. A moment ago, my mother was mid-laugh, talking about her new luxury sedan, and my father was pouring a vintage Cabernet. Now, a thick, uncomfortable quiet settled over the dining table. My grandmother, Eleanor Vance, fixed her gaze directly on me. In that instant, she didn't seem old or delicate. She looked like a predator. "Chloe," she said. Her voice was even but carried a razor's edge. "Are you enjoying the house I purchased for you?" My insides went cold. I couldn't move. I could feel the warmth leaving my face. I glanced at my parents. My father, Richard, was suddenly fascinated by his serving of scalloped potatoes. My mother, Helen, was frozen. Her wine glass paused halfway to her lips, the polite smile on her face faltering, then collapsing entirely. I looked back at my grandmother. The impulse to lie was overwhelming, to protect them the way I had always been conditioned to do. But I was so tired. I was 27 years old, wearing a secondhand coat, and I was shivering from a cold that had settled deep into my bones because my apartment's heating was a joke. "Grandma," I managed to whisper, my voice unsteady. "I don't have a house." Her eyes narrowed. Slowly, she shifted her gaze to my father. "Then tell me, Richard, where did my $500,000 go? But before we get into that, do me a quick favor and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. I'd love to know. To truly grasp why I was paralyzed at that dinner table, you have to know the unwritten laws of my family. In the Sterling household, the truth was flexible. Your happiness was irrelevant. The only thing that ever mattered was the facade, how things appeared to the outside world. My parents, Richard and Helen, were experts in image management. They were a striking couple. My father, tall and silver-haired, was always in suits that cost more than a down payment on a car. My mother was willowy, blonde, and perpetually smiling. But it was a smile that never reached her eyes. Her eyes were always darting around, assessing for imperfections, for dust, for any sign that I might be embarrassing them. I was the primary imperfection. I wasn't polished like they were. I was introverted, a little clumsy, and as I grew into an adult, I embodied the one thing they couldn't tolerate. I was struggling. They didn't call it struggling, of course. They called it a lack of drive. My poverty was a character-building exercise. While my grandmother, Eleanor, was off running her global business empire or living in her penthouse in Paris, my parents were living comfortably on the generous allowance she provided and the cushy salaries from the jobs she had secured for them. They lived in an immaculate house in a manicured, gated community. They drove new cars every 2 years. They took vacations to places I only saw in magazines. And I lived in a basement apartment that had a persistent smell of mildew. Let me paint you a picture of my life before that fateful Christmas dinner. I was 27. I worked 2 jobs to make ends meet. During the day, I was a library assistant, a quiet job that paid very little but offered a sense of peace. At night and on weekends, I was a barista at a busy coffee shop downtown. The exhaustion was constant. It was a physical weight in my limbs. My eyes felt permanently raw from sleep deprivation. My apartment was in a building that was one code violation away from being condemned. The heating was unreliable at best. In Vermont, where the winters are no joke, that was a serious problem. I would sleep in layers of fleece, sometimes wearing a hat to bed. I could often see my own breath when I made coffee in the morning. A persistent leak in my bathroom ceiling had created a brownish, spreading stain. Underneath it, I kept an old blue plastic bucket. Drip, drip, drip. That was the constant soundtrack to my nights. I'd pleaded with my landlord to fix it, but he'd just shrug and tell me rent was cheap for a reason. I couldn't afford to move. The security deposit for a decent place might as well have been $1 million. I remember one particularly miserable afternoon in October, a few months before Christmas. My old sedan had finally given up. The mechanic said the engine had seized. It would be at least $1,500 to even attempt a repair. I didn't have $1,500. I had about $50 in my bank account and a pile of laundry I couldn't afford to do. I swallowed my pride, which was a bitter pill. I called my father. "Dad," I started, huddled under the awning of the repair shop as a cold rain started to fall. "I'm in a really bad spot. My car is dead, and I can't get to either of my jobs without it. Could you possibly lend me the money? I'll pay you back. I can do $50 a week." A long, telling silence hung on the line. I could hear the faint sound of music and chatter in the background. Another one of their dinner parties. The clinking of crystal. "Chloe," my father finally said, letting out a long theatrical sigh. It was his signature sigh of profound disappointment. "We've been over this. You need to learn how to stand on your own 2 feet. I know, Dad, but this is a real emergency. If I can't work, I'll get fired." His voice turned cold and preachy. "If we rescue you every time you hit a bump in the road, you'll never develop any resilience. This is how you learn to be self-sufficient. Figure it out. The bus system exists for a reason. It'll be good for you." He hung up. I found out later from one of my mother's blissfully unaware social media posts that she had spent that very afternoon at a high-end spa with her friends. The bill, with treatments and champagne, came to over $1,500. She'd posted a selfie, face slathered in some gold-flecked mask, with the caption, "A little self-care is a must. Blessed." That was the reality of my world. They had money for spas, for wine collections, for completely redoing their guest bathroom because my mother decided she preferred chrome fixtures to brushed nickel. But they didn't have a penny for their daughter who just needed to get to work. So, I quit asking. I let that last sliver of hope die. I just focused on surviving. I started taking the bus, which turned my commute into a 3-hour daily ordeal. I lost weight because I was skipping lunch to save every possible dollar for the car. My wardrobe consisted of whatever was cheapest at the thrift store. The coat I wore to Christmas dinner, $10 from Goodwill. It was a man's coat, too wide in the shoulders, but it was thick wool, and it kept out the worst of the wind. When the invitation for Christmas dinner arrived, my first instinct was to say no. I just wanted to stay in my cold little cave, eat ramen, and sleep for 12 hours. But you don't decline an invitation from the Sterlings. Not when Grandma Eleanor was going to be there. Grandma was a different breed. She was formidable, yes. A self-made billionaire who had clawed her way to the top in a man's world. She was tough, but she wasn't cruel. She lived in Europe for most of the year, so our visits were rare. But she always sent cards for birthdays and holidays, and gifts. Or so I thought. On every birthday card, she'd write a little note. "I've sent a little something to your parents to pass along. Treat yourself to something special." I never saw a single one of those somethings. When I was younger and more naive, I asked my mother about it. "Oh, honey, Grandma gets confused," Mom would say with a dismissive wave of her hand. "She thinks she sent a check, but she forgets. She's getting on in years, Chloe. Don't mention it to her. You'll just embarrass her." So I never did. I just assumed my powerful grandmother had a quirky, forgetful streak. I didn't even care about the money. I just liked knowing she was thinking of me. That Christmas, I took the bus to my parents' neighborhood. The route ended a mile from their gated community, so I had to walk the rest of the way. It was snowing, and the wind was sharp. My cheap boots had a crack in the sole, and I could feel the damp cold seeping into my sock. I finally arrived at their grand front door, shivering uncontrollably. The house was aglow with warm golden light. A designer wreath hung on the door, one that probably cost more than my monthly food budget. I knocked. My mother opened the door. Her greeting wasn't hello or Merry Christmas. Her eyes immediately fell on my coat, and her lip curled. "Chloe," she hissed, her voice a low whisper, "you look like you just crawled out of a dumpster. Take that thing off right now. Put it in the back closet. Don't let your grandmother see you in that." "It's cold, Mom," I said, stepping into the glorious warmth of the house. "You're late," she snapped, ignoring me. "Go fix your hair. You look a fright. And for heaven's sake, try to look happy. We're having a lovely family evening. Don't you dare ruin it with one of your moods." I escaped to the powder room and stared at my reflection. I did look tired. My skin was sallow, and there were dark smudges under my eyes. I tried to smooth my windblown hair and pinch some color into my cheeks. I looked at the woman in the mirror and just felt a profound sense of pity for her. Why did I do this to myself? Why did I keep coming back for more of this casual cruelty? Because deep down, I still craved a family, even a counterfeit one. I wanted to sit at a beautiful table and eat a hot meal. I wanted to pretend just for one night that I was part of a family that loved me. I walked into the dining room. The table was a picture of perfection. Crystal goblets, sterling silver, linen napkins folded into elaborate fans. A huge, perfectly browned turkey was the centerpiece. Grandma Eleanor was at the head of the table, looking like royalty in a dark emerald green dress and a simple string of pearls. Her silver hair was coiffed perfectly. When she saw me, her face broke into the only genuine smile I'd seen all night. "Chloe," she said, "come here, darling." I went to her, and she gave me a hug. She smelled of expensive perfume and something faintly like cloves. Her hands felt warm against my cold skin. "You're a wisp," she said, holding me at arm's length to get a better look. Her eyes were sharp, taking in every detail of my face. "Are you eating properly?" "I'm fine, Grandma," I lied. "Just been busy." "Sit down," she instructed. "Eat something." I took my seat. My father was pouring wine, deliberately avoiding my gaze, already in performance mode for his mother. "So, Mother," he said in his booming, important voice, "how are the London ventures?" "The markets are looking strong, from what I've seen." He always wanted to talk about money. My mother was serving potatoes. "Yes. And did you see the photos I sent of the new rose garden? We've really enhanced the curb appeal this year." She always wanted to talk about appearances. I stayed quiet. I was starving. I ate the turkey, the potatoes, the stuffing. I drank the wine, which was excellent, and spread a welcome warmth through my chest. For a little while, the conversation was predictably boring. My parents boasted about their influential friends, their recent trip to Tuscany, and how incredibly busy they were. Which was the biggest lie of all. I just ate and listened, trying to make myself as small and invisible as possible. Then the mood shifted. Grandma put down her wine glass. She turned to me, her expression softening. "You know, Chloe," she said, "I was so pleased when your father told me you'd finally gotten settled. I've been waiting to hear how you're enjoying the new place." I looked up, completely baffled. Settled where? My father dropped his fork. The clatter was deafening in the suddenly quiet room. My mother went rigid. Grandma, oblivious to their panic, continued. "The house, dear, the house I bought for you. And that's where we came in." The moment the world seemed to grind to a halt, the moment the silence in the room became a heavy, physical presence pressing down on me, The fork on the plate, the intense stare, the question, "Chloe, are you enjoying the house I purchased for you?" The silence stretched on. 1 second, 2, 10. It felt like an eternity. My mind was scrambling to make sense of her words. "The house I bought for you. What house?" I stared at my grandmother. She wasn't forgetful. She wasn't confused. Her eyes were as clear and sharp as glass. She was waiting for an answer. She was expecting me to say, "Oh yes, Grandma, it's wonderful. The kitchen is a dream. The garden is just starting to come in," but I couldn't. I'm a terrible liar. My parents are professionals, but it's a skill they never passed down to me. My voice was a dry croak. I cleared my throat. My father, Richard, suddenly erupted in a loud, forced laugh. It was a jarring, barking sound that didn't belong in the tense atmosphere. "Ha! Oh, Mother, you know our Chloe, always the kidder." He shot a look at me. His eyes were wide, practically begging, but beneath the plea was a flash of pure fury. His eyes screamed, "Shut your mouth! Play along! Don't you dare blow this for us!" My mother quickly joined in, her voice pitched unnaturally high. "Yes, Chloe's just being modest. She absolutely adores the place. She's just overwhelmed by your generosity, Eleanor." They were doing it. Right there in front of me, they were constructing an alternate reality, brick by brick, lie by lie. But Grandma Eleanor wasn't laughing. She didn't even crack a smile. She didn't look at them. Her eyes remained locked on me. "Chloe," she said again, her voice softer now, but carrying more weight. "Why did you say you don't have a house?" I gripped the edge of the table, the starched linen rough against my fingertips. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. I knew that if I told the truth, it would be a detonation. The moment I said the words, their world would come crashing down. They would be exposed. They would despise me. The fallout would be biblical. But then an image flashed in my mind. The blue plastic bucket in my bathroom. Drip, drip, drip. I thought about the draft from the window I had sealed with packing tape. I thought about my father's voice on the phone, telling me that hardship builds character. And then my eyes drifted to my mother's new diamond earrings, glittering in the candlelight. And something inside me, a tiny frayed cord of misplaced loyalty that had been stretched thin for years, finally snapped. "I don't have a house, Grandma," I said. My voice was level this time. "I live in a basement apartment on Elm Street. I rent it. It's $900 a month." My mother let out a theatrical gasp. "Chloe, why are you lying to your grandmother?" She turned to Eleanor, her hand reaching out as if to comfort her. Eleanor pulled her arm away. "She's just confused, Eleanor," my mother rambled, her words spilling out in a rush. "She's been working far too hard. She's not herself." "I am myself," I said. I wasn't shouting. I was just stating a fact. I have never owned a house. I have never seen a house. I didn't know you bought me a house. Eleanor's face transformed. The warmth evaporated. The confusion was gone. It was replaced by a cold, hard fury. She looked like the titan of industry she was, a woman who did not suffer fools or liars. She reached into the expensive purse at her feet and pulled out her smartphone. She tapped the screen a few times and then turned it to face my father. "Richard," she said, "explain this." My father stared at the phone. I saw his Adam's apple bob as he swallowed hard. "This is a photograph you sent me 4 months ago," Grandma said, her voice chillingly calm. "It's a photo of Chloe standing in front of a charming blue cottage. The caption reads, 'Chloe moving into her new home. She's over the moon. Thank you, Mother.'" I leaned forward. I recognized the picture. It was from a family trip to Lake Champlain 5 years earlier. We'd rented a cottage for a long weekend. I was smiling because I was 22 and still naive enough to be happy they'd included me. That's from our vacation, I said. That was years ago. Grandma turned the phone toward my mother. And this email? From you, Helen, dated last February. The renovations on Chloe's house are finally done. We used the extra $60,000 you sent for the new roof and windows. It looks absolutely perfect. My mother's face was ashen. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I sent $500,000, Grandma stated, not as an accusation but as a fact. I wired it to the family trust account with explicit, legally binding instructions that it was to be used for Chloe's first home. I wanted her to have a secure start in life, a foundation. She looked at me, her eyes softening for a second. You never received it? No, I whispered. You never got the keys to a house? No. You had no knowledge of this money at all? No. Grandma closed her eyes for a brief moment, taking a single deep breath. When she opened them, they were glistening not with sadness, but with rage. Where did the money go? She asked, her gaze boring into my father. Richard wiped a bead of sweat from his temple with his napkin. Mother, please. Let's not discuss financial matters at Christmas dinner. Where, she repeated, her voice rising, did the money go? We invested it, Richard stammered. For her. We were safeguarding her asset. The market has been so volatile. We felt it was wiser to hold it in the main account until she was more mature, ready. I'm 27, I said. When exactly was I going to be ready? You can't even keep a reliable car, my mother snapped, her fear instantly curdling into venom aimed squarely at me. Look at you. You're a mess. If we'd given you a $500,000 house, you would have let it crumble into ruin. We were being responsible parents. Responsible, Grandma echoed. She pushed her chair back and stood up. The sound scraped loudly across the hardwood floor. You told me she was living there, Grandma said. You lied to me. For years. We didn't lie, my mother cried, fat tears beginning to roll down her cheeks. Were they real? Fake? I couldn't tell anymore. We thought of it as her house in principle. We were just waiting for the right moment. And the $60,000 for renovations, Grandma pressed. The new roof and windows? Silence. I noticed you had your kitchen completely redone this summer, Helen, Grandma said, her voice like ice. It looks very high-end. My mother stared down at her plate. And Richard, Grandma continued, turning to my father. That new sports car in the driveway, is that a lease or did you purchase it outright? My father remained silent. Grandma's gaze swept around the opulent room, taking in the expensive art, the crystal chandelier, the sheer abundance of food on the table. Then her eyes landed back on me. She looked at my $10 wool coat hanging by the door. She looked at my cracked, worn-out boots. She looked at my gaunt face. You have been living in this luxury, she whispered, her voice trembling with disbelief, while my granddaughter lives in... She stopped, unable to finish. She turned to me. Where is it you live, Chloe? A basement apartment on Elm Street, I repeated. Is it safe? Not especially, I admitted. The lock on the main building door is broken, and the heating is spotty. Grandma let out a sound that was half a sob, half a gasp of rage. She gripped her cane. Get your coat, Chloe. Mother, sit down, my father shouted, finally finding his voice. He stood up, trying to use his height to intimidate her. You are making a scene. We can explain this. There are tax implications you're not understanding. I am not interested in your explanations, Grandma cut him off. She walked around the table and placed a hand on my shoulder. We are leaving. Where could you possibly go? My mother shrieked. We haven't even served dessert. I seem to have lost my appetite, Grandma said flatly. Chloe, take me to your apartment. You can't go there. my father yelled. "It's a complete dive." "You would be appalled. If it is good enough for my granddaughter to live in," Grandma retorted, her voice shaking with fury, "then it is good enough for me to see." She pulled me to my feet. "Grandma," I said softly, "I took the bus here. Then I walked." Grandma froze. She looked down at my damp boots. "You walked?" she whispered. "In this snow?" I nodded. She looked back at my parents one last time. The expression on her face was one of absolute finality. It was the look of a bridge being burned to the ground, with no hope of ever being rebuilt. "Call a taxi," she commanded my father. "Mother, don't be— Call a taxi!" she roared. It was the first time I had ever heard her raise her voice like that. The sound echoed in the high-ceilinged room. My father fumbled for his phone, his hands shaking so violently he almost dropped it. My mother just sat in her chair, weeping into her linen napkin. "This is all your fault," she hissed at me from behind the cloth. "You ungrateful little brat. You've ruined Christmas." I just looked at her. For the first time in my life, her words had no power. They didn't sting. They just felt hollow. I didn't say a thing. I just told the truth. Grandma took my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "Come, Chloe," she said. "We are finished here." We walked to the door. I put on my oversized second-hand coat. Grandma put on her elegant cashmere one. We stood on the grand porch in the biting cold, waiting for the taxi. The door to my parents' house clicked shut behind us, closing off the warmth and the light. But standing there in the cold, holding my grandmother's hand, I felt warmer and safer than I had in years. The taxi ride was silent, but it wasn't the suffocating silence of my parents' dining room. It was a heavy, contemplative quiet. The driver, an older man who looked like he'd seen his share of late-night drama, kept glancing in the rearview mirror. He saw an elderly woman dressed in pearls and cashmere sitting beside a young woman in a shabby, oversized coat. He must have been curious about our story, but he had the good sense not to ask. He just drove. Grandma Eleanor stared out the window, her jaw clenched as the city lights streaked across her face. Her hands were wrapped around the silver head of her cane, her knuckles white. I was a bundle of nerves. I was deeply ashamed to show her where I lived. It was one thing to describe it. It was another to have her witness it. There's a unique humiliation in revealing your struggles to someone you respect, especially when that person is a billionaire. "It's not a very nice area, Grandma," I whispered as the taxi turned off the main street. The houses grew smaller and shabbier. The streetlights were fewer and farther between. The snow here wasn't the picturesque white blanket of my parents' neighborhood. It was a gray, trampled slush. "I don't care about the area, Chloe," she said, her voice firm. "I care about you." He pulled up in front of my building, a squat 3-story brick box from the 70s that looked like it had been forgotten by time. The main door was propped open with a broken piece of concrete because the intercom system was dead. The single light in the hallway flickered erratically, casting long, dancing shadows on the water-stained walls. Grandma paid the driver, handing him a $50 bill for a $12 fare. We stood on the cracked sidewalk for a moment. A stray cat hissed at us from beneath a nearby dumpster. "This is it?" she asked, her voice quiet. "Yes," I said. "I'm in the basement, apartment 1B. We walked inside. The smell hit us first, a mix of dampness, stale cooking grease, and a faint, metallic odor I could never identify. Grandma's nostrils flared, but she didn't flinch. We descended the short flight of stairs to the basement level. I fumbled with my key, having to jiggle it and lift the doorknob just so to get the lock to turn. "Welcome to my palace," I said with a weak attempt at humor, pushing the door open. I flicked on the light. The room was exactly as I'd left it. A small, sad square, a tiny kitchenette in one corner with only 2 working burners, a lumpy futon that served as both my couch and my bed. A cheap folding table was my dining area, and in the bathroom, the blue plastic bucket, collecting a slow, rhythmic drip. Drip, drip. Grandma walked in slowly, the tap, tap, tap of her cane echoing on the cheap linoleum. She looked at the windows, fogged with condensation and sealed with silvery packing tape to keep out the drafts. She looked at the little space heater in the corner, my sole source of consistent warmth, humming away. She walked into the tiny bathroom and stared at the bucket. She looked up at the yellow-brown water stain on the ceiling, which was spreading like a disease. "How long?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "The leak?" "About 6 months," I said. "The landlord keeps promising to look at it." "And the heat?" "The radiator kicks on occasionally. Mostly I rely on the space heater." She turned to face me. Under the harsh, naked bulb of my apartment, the fury from dinner had melted away, replaced by a profound, gut-wrenching sorrow. "They knew," she said, "Richard and Helen. They knew you were living like this." "They dropped me off here once," I said, "right after my car died. Mom refused to even get out of the car. She said it smelled like boiled vegetables. Dad just told me I needed to work harder so I could afford a better place." Grandma closed her eyes, and a single tear traced a path through the powder on her cheek. "I sent them the money for your house 4 years ago," she whispered. 4 years, $500,000. Enough to buy a beautiful home outright, enough for furniture, a car, a life. She opened her eyes and scanned the room again. She saw my 2 pairs of worn-out shoes by the door. She saw my small stack of library books on the floor. She saw the half-finished painting propped up in the corner, a canvas of a stormy sea, rendered in cheap acrylics because I couldn't afford proper oils. "You survived this," she said, her voice breaking. "You survived, while they were buying sports cars and going to Tuscany." "I'm okay, Grandma," I said, instinctively trying to comfort her. "I'm managing." "You shouldn't have to manage," she cried out, striking the floor with her cane. The sound was like a gunshot in the tiny room. "You are my granddaughter. You are a Vance. I worked my entire life to ensure that my family would never, ever have to live in a place like this." She took a steadying breath, regaining her composure. She walked over to me and cupped my face in her hands. Her palms were impossibly soft against my rough, chapped skin. "They stole from you," she said, her voice firm and clear. "They didn't just steal my money, Chloe. They stole your security. They stole your youth. They stole years of your life from you." "I thought you'd forgotten me," I confessed, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "I thought maybe I wasn't good enough. That's why the birthday gifts you mentioned never came." Grandma pulled me into a fierce hug, holding me so tightly I could feel the buttons of her coat pressing into my chest. "I never forgot you," she whispered into my hair. "Never, ever. I was a fool. I trusted them. I assumed they loved you as much as I do. I was wrong." She pulled back, her face a mask of stone once more. The sorrow was gone, replaced by steel. "Pack a bag," she commanded. "What? Pack a bag! You are not spending one more night in this place. Where are we going? To a hotel, the best one in the city. And then, tomorrow, we are going to fix this." The hotel suite was larger than my entire apartment building. The carpet was so thick my feet sank into it. The bed was a mountain of white pillows and crisp linens, and it was warm, gloriously, wonderfully warm. Grandma ordered an absurd amount of room service: soup, sandwiches, pasta, hot tea, and a decadent chocolate cake. I ate like a wolf, while she just sipped her tea and watched me with an unreadable expression. After we ate, she didn't sleep. She sat at the large desk in the suite's living area, put on her reading glasses, and took out her phone and a small leather-bound notebook. "Go get some rest, Chloe," she said. "I have some work to do." "What are you doing?" I asked, hesitating in the bedroom doorway. "I am making a list," she said grimly. "I'm going through every bank transfer, every email, every text message for the last 5 years. I am building a case." I went to bed, but I lay awake for hours, listening. Through the open door, I could hear her low, commanding voice on the phone, even though it was the middle of the night. She was talking to her bankers in Zurich, her lawyers in New York. I heard fragments of her conversations. Freeze the accounts. Yes, all of them. Richard's personal, Helen's as well. I don't care that it's Christmas Eve. Do it now. I want the deed records for the property at Clearwater Lake. Yes, the one they purchased 3 years ago. I want to know whose name is on it. Get Arthur Finch on the line. I need him in his office at 9 a.m. sharp. Tell him to bring the original trust documents. She was a general commanding an army. She was methodical, precise, and utterly terrifying. I finally fell asleep to the sound of her pen scratching against paper and her quiet, furious voice dismantling my parents' lives. I woke up to sunlight filtering through the heavy curtains. For a moment, I was disoriented by the opulence, and then it all came rushing back. The dinner, the taxi, the bucket. I walked into the living area. Grandma was still at the desk. She was in the same emerald dress, though she'd taken off her pearls. The desk was covered in stacks of paper she must have had the hotel staff print for her overnight. She looked exhausted, but her eyes were alight with a fierce, focused energy. "Good morning," she said, not looking up from a document. "Did you sleep at all?" I asked. "No, I'll sleep when this is over." She put the paper down and finally turned to me. "Sit down, Chloe. I need to tell you what's going to happen today." I sat on the plush sofa. "I've uncovered everything," she said, "and it's much worse than I imagined." My stomach twisted into a knot. How could it be worse? "The $500,000 for the house was only the beginning," she said. "I've also been sending you a monthly allowance, $2,500 a month since you turned 21. My jaw dropped. "What?" "They told me they were putting it into a high-yield savings account for you. They said you wanted to save it all to start a business one day." "I never saw a cent of it," I said, my voice hollow. "I've been working for $13 an hour." "I know," she said. "They took that too. And the tuition money I sent for your application to the Rhode Island School of Design? The one they told me you decided not to pursue?" "I didn't decide not to go," I cried. "Mom told me we couldn't afford the application fees, let alone the tuition. She said my portfolio wasn't strong enough for a scholarship and that I should be more realistic." Grandma's hand clenched into a white-knuckled fist on the desk. "They lied to you to keep you down," she seethed, "and they lied to me to keep the cash flowing." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the snow-covered city. "I created this monster," she said softly. "I gave them too much, and it made them weak. And their weakness made them greedy. And their greed made them prey on the one person they should have died to protect." She turned back to me, her eyes blazing. "We are going to the lawyer's office in 1 hour. Your parents have been summoned." "I don't want to see them," I said, feeling sick to my stomach. "I can't." "You won't have to say a single word," Grandma said. "I will do all the talking. But you need to be there. You need to witness this. You need to see the truth brought into the light." She put her hands on my shoulders. "Today, we stop them from rewriting your story," she said. "Today, you start writing your own. And the first chapter is about taking back what belongs to you. For the first time in my life, Looking into her fierce, determined eyes, I didn't feel like a victim. I didn't feel like a poor relation. I felt like a Vance. "Okay," I said. "I'm ready." "Good," she said with a nod. "Now go take a shower. I've had some clothes sent over. They should be here any minute. You are not walking into that office in a thrift store coat. You are walking in there as the heiress to the Vance fortune." A knock at the door confirmed her words. A hotel employee wheeled in a rack of clothing, a tailored black coat, expensive leather boots, a cashmere sweater in a soft dove gray, trousers that fit perfectly. I got dressed and looked at my reflection. I stood a little taller. The clothes didn't change who I was on the inside, but they felt like a suit of armor. Grandma gave a single, approving nod when she saw me. "Let's go," she said. "It's time for the reckoning." Arthur Finch's law firm occupied the top floor of a glass skyscraper downtown. It was the kind of place with marble floors and hushed, reverent voices. I walked in beside my grandmother, wearing the new clothes, the sleek coat, the solid, warm boots. I felt like a different person. I didn't feel like the girl from the basement apartment. I felt armored. We rode the elevator up to the 50th floor in silence. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. I was terrified of seeing them, of what they might say, of how they might try to twist this and make it my fault. Grandma sensed my fear and squeezed my hand. "Head high, Chloe," she whispered. "You have done nothing wrong. They are the ones who should be afraid." We were shown into a large conference room with a sprawling mahogany table and a panoramic view of the city. My parents were already there, sitting on one side of the table like defendants. My father, Richard, wore one of his best suits, but it was rumpled. His tie was askew. He looked like he hadn't slept. My mother, Helen, wore oversized sunglasses, which she removed as we entered. Her eyes were red and swollen. When they saw me, they both tensed. I saw my mother's eyes flicker over my new coat, and a flash of pure envy crossed her face before she could hide it. "So," my father said, attempting a confident tone that fell completely flat. "We're really doing this? With lawyers? Mother, this is absurd. This is a family matter." "There is nothing to discuss," Grandma said, her voice arctic. She remained standing at the head of the table. "Sit down, Chloe." I sat in a plush leather chair beside her, across from my parents. Arthur Finch entered the room. He was a tall, imposing man with gray hair and stern eyes. He carried a thick binder, which he placed on the table with a heavy, final-sounding thud. "Good morning," he said, his tone devoid of warmth. "Let us begin. We are here to address the systematic misappropriation of funds from the Eleanor Vance Trust, specifically those funds designated for the beneficiary, Miss Chloe Sterling." My father let out a nervous chuckle. "Misappropriation? That's a very strong word, Arthur. We are the trustees. We have fiduciary discretion." Arthur looked at my father over the top of his glasses. "Discretion does not extend to embezzlement, Richard." My father's face flushed a deep red. "Let's begin with the $500,000 transfer sent on June 10th, 4 years ago," Arthur said, opening the binder. The wire transfer was explicitly marked for Chloe, house purchase. "Where is that money?" Richard cleared his throat, glancing at my mother, who was staring intently at the polished table. We felt Chloe wasn't prepared for the responsibilities of homeownership," Richard said, his smooth salesman's voice emerging. "She was young, unfocused. We didn't want to saddle her with property taxes and upkeep. So we secured the asset." "Secured it where?" Grandma asked. Her voice was quiet, but it sliced through the room. "In our primary investment portfolio," Richard replied quickly. "Where it could grow." Safely. Arthur pulled a document from the binder and slid it across the table. This is your bank statement from that month, Richard. The day after the $500,000 deposit, there was a withdrawal for $480,000 paid to Clearwater Lake Properties. The room fell utterly silent. I stopped breathing. Clearwater Lake, the most exclusive private community in the state, a place for the ultra-rich to build their summer homes. "You bought a lake house," I whispered. My mother looked up, her lower lip trembling. "It was an investment. For you, Chloe. Real estate is the soundest investment. Is my name on the deed?" I asked, my voice gaining strength. Arthur answered for them, "No. The deed is in the names of Richard and Helen Sterling." I felt a wave of nausea. "You told me you couldn't lend me $1,500 to fix my car," I said, my voice shaking with a rage that was finally boiling over. "You let me take 3 hours of buses to get to work, while you owned a lake house. We couldn't just liquidate a major asset for a minor car repair," my father snapped. "You have no concept of finance, Chloe. Money doesn't just grow on trees." Arthur slid another paper across the table. "And the $60,000 for renovations? Paid for a new kitchen and boat dock at the lake house? Was that also for Chloe's benefit?" "You have to maintain the property value," my mother cried. "You have to spend money to make money." "And the monthly allowance?" Arthur continued, his voice relentless. $2,500 a month intended for Miss Sterling's living expenses, transferred from the trust to your personal account every month for 6 years. "That was for administrative fees," Richard said, sweat now glistening on his forehead. "Managing a trust of this size is a complex job." "Administrative fees?" Grandma slammed her palm on the table. "You used my granddaughter's grocery money to pay for your golf club membership. I've seen the statements, Richard. The trips to Paris, the designer clothes." She pointed a trembling finger at them. "You let her live in a damp basement with a bucket catching drips from the ceiling," Grandma hissed, "while you drank Chardonnay on a boat dock that was paid for with her inheritance. We were going to give it all to her eventually." My mother sobbed. "When she was settled, when she got married, we were protecting her future." "I am her future," Grandma said, "and I am here to inform you that her future no longer involves you." My parents looked at each other, trapped and exposed. Their excuses had run out. The lies had failed. Arthur closed the binder with a sharp snap. The total amount misappropriated, accounting for the initial sum, the allowance, and projected interest, comes to just over $800,000, he stated. "That constitutes grand larceny and wire fraud." My father's face turned a pale, sickly gray. Are you going to press charges?" Grandma looked at her son. I saw the deep pain in her eyes, the agony of a mother realizing her own child was a thief and a liar. "I should," she said softly. "I should let you go to prison." My mother began to wail. "Please, Eleanor, think of the family name, the scandal. He's your son." "Chloe is my granddaughter," Grandma replied. "And right now she is the only family I recognize in this room." The air was thick with my parents' terror. They weren't afraid of losing my love. That had never been valuable to them. They were afraid of losing their money, their status, their freedom. Grandma stood slowly, leaning on her cane. "I am not going to send you to prison," she said. My father let out a huge, shuddering sigh of relief. "Oh, thank God. Mother, thank you. We'll make it right. We can work out a payment plan." "Be quiet," Grandma commanded. She turned to Arthur. "Read the addendum." Arthur opened a new document, one stamped in red. "As of this morning, Mrs. Eleanor Vance has executed a revision to her estate plan." He read in a flat monotone that made the words all the more devastating. Previously, the estate was to be divided equally between her son, Daniel Sterling, and various charities, with a minor trust for Chloe Sterling. My parents nodded. This was the future they had been counting on. The revised plan, Arthur continued, removes Richard and Helen Sterling as beneficiaries in their entirety. My mother gasped, a sharp, wounded sound. What? You are disinherited, Grandma stated plainly. You get nothing. Not the company, not the properties, not one single dollar. You can't do that, Richard yelled, jumping to his feet and slamming his hands on the table. I'm your son. I helped you build that company. You helped yourself to the company's coffers, Grandma said calmly. Sit down, Richard. He stood his ground, shaking with rage. This is undue influence. She's poisoned you against us. He pointed a shaking finger at me. Look at her, playing the poor little victim. She probably orchestrated this whole thing. I looked at my father, the man who was supposed to protect me, and I felt nothing but a vast empty distance. He didn't know me at all. I didn't orchestrate anything, I said quietly. I just answered a question. Read the rest, Arthur, Grandma ordered. Miss Chloe Sterling is now the sole heir to the Vance estate, Arthur read. She is also appointed as the new primary trustee, effective immediately. This gives her full control over all current family trust assets. My parents stared at me. For the first time in my life, they weren't looking at me with pity or disdain. They were looking at me with fear. The power had irrevocably shifted. I wasn't the girl begging for a bus fare. I was the one who signed the checks. Chloe, my mother whispered, her voice instantly turning syrupy and sweet. Chloe, honey, you wouldn't do this to us. We're your parents. We raised you. We put a roof over your head. You put a roof over your own heads with my money, I said. We made a mistake, my father pleaded, his voice thick with desperation. We're not perfect, but you can't just cut us off. How will we live? The mortgage, the cars. The house I lived in had a bucket on the floor, I said. I'm sure you'll figure it out. It builds character, right, Dad? He winced as if I'd slapped him. Grandma spoke again. There is one final matter, the Clearwater Lake property. It's ours, Richard said. The deed is in our name. Purchased with stolen funds, Arthur reminded him. We can file a civil suit to seize it as a criminal asset. It will be public. It will be messy. The headlines will be unpleasant. Sterling family fraud. My father closed his eyes. He couldn't bear the scandal. His entire identity was built on his social standing. Or, Arthur said smoothly, you can sign the deed over to Chloe today, voluntarily, as a partial repayment of the stolen funds. If you do, Eleanor will agree not to pursue criminal charges. They had no choice. It was the lake house or jail. Fine, my father spat. Fine, take it, take everything. Arthur slid the deed transfer documents across the table and handed my father a pen. My father signed his name with such force, I thought the pen would tear the paper. My mother signed it, her tears smudging the ink. Arthur took the papers back. He reviewed the signatures. It is done, he announced. He looked at me. Congratulations, Miss Sterling. You are now the owner of the Clearwater Lake estate. I stared at the papers. I owned a house I had paid for with years of hunger and cold and quiet desperation. Grandma walked over to my parents. She looked down at them, a figure of immense power. Richard, she said softly, you let my granddaughter shiver in a basement while you sat on her deck and drank wine. He tried to speak, but she held up a hand. You built your life on her misery, she said. I am ashamed of you. I am ashamed that I raised a son who could be so cruel to his own child. Mom, he whispered. Don't call me that, she said. Not for a very long time. Get out. But how are we supposed to get home? My mother asked, looking genuinely bewildered. We took the Porsche. That's a company car. Leased through the Vance Corporation, Arthur said matter-of-factly. All company assets are being recalled today. I believe the bus stop is 2 blocks east. My father looked at me one last time, his eyes burning with a venomous hatred. You think you've won, he said, but you're weak. You don't know how this world works. You'll fail, and you'll come crawling back. I survived you for 27 years, I said. I think I'll be fine. They walked out of the room, looking smaller, deflated, ordinary. When the door clicked shut, the silence that filled the room was not heavy. It was clean. Grandma sank into her chair, letting out a long, weary sigh. Are you all right? I asked, kneeling beside her. She touched my cheek. I am sad, she admitted, but I am also relieved. It's done. She glanced at the deed on the table. So, she said, a small smile finally gracing her lips. You own a house now. Shall we go see it? I smiled back. Yes, I'd like that very much. But before we left, Arthur cleared his throat. One more thing, Chloe. Your grandmother has also transferred control of your personal trust directly to you. The back pay, the stolen allowance, it has all been replenished from her personal accounts. You have immediate access to $800,000. I stared at the number on the paper. It didn't seem real. What do I do with it? I asked, completely overwhelmed. Grandma stood and took her cane. Anything you want, my dear, she said. Buy a new car. Buy all the oil paints in Vermont. Or just let it sit there. It's yours. No one else's. No more strings. We walked out of the office and down to the street. The winter air was sharp, but for the first time I didn't feel the cold. I hailed a taxi myself. I opened the door for my grandmother. To the lake, I told the driver. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't worried about the cost of the ride. 2 days later, I went back to my basement apartment for the last time. I wasn't going back to live. I was going to pack. Grandma insisted on coming with me. She said she didn't want me in that neighborhood alone, but I knew the real reason. She didn't want me to be alone if they showed up. And she was right. We were in the middle of boxing up my books when the pounding started on the door. Bam! 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 It wasn't a knock, it was a fist. Chloe, open this door right now. It was my father. His voice was raw and furious. I looked at Grandma, who was sitting calmly on my folding chair, her hands resting on her cane. She gave me a slight nod. Open it, she mouthed. I walked to the door, my hands trembling slightly, not with fear, but with adrenaline. I slid the deadbolt and pulled the door open. My father stood there, looking like a wreck. He was wearing the same suit from the lawyer's office, now deeply wrinkled. His hair was a mess. Behind him, my mother stood shivering in a coat that was too thin for the weather. You! He snarled, trying to shove his way past me. I stood my ground, blocking the doorway. What do you want? You twisted her mind against us, he shouted, spit flying from his mouth. You played the pathetic little victim, and you stole our entire lives. I didn't steal anything, I said calmly. I just took back what was always mine. It was never yours, he screamed. We managed that money. We built that life. You think you can just waltz in and take over? You don't know the first thing about any of it. I know you don't spend it on vacations when your child is choosing between paying rent and eating, I shot back. He lunged forward, his face purple with rage, his finger pointing in my face. You ungrateful little... Thud. Grandma's cane hit the floor with a loud crack. Richard froze. He looked past me and saw her sitting there in the dim light of my apartment. Mother, he whispered. Don't, Grandma said, her voice dangerously quiet. She stood and walked to the door, standing beside me like a sentry. You come to her home, the home you condemned her to, and you threaten her? She manipulated you, Richard pleaded. She lied. She made it all sound so much worse than it was. Look around you, Richard, Grandma commanded, sweeping her arm to indicate the room. Look at the water stains. Look at the taped-up window. Is this a lie? Is the mildew on the wall a lie? He refused to look. He couldn't. You took everything from me first, I told him, looking him dead in the eye. You took my confidence. You took my peace of mind. You let me think I was worthless so you could have a more comfortable life. We were protecting you, he insisted, but the lie was flimsy and transparent now. You were protecting yourselves, I said. You were protecting your precious image. My mother stepped forward crying. They were real tears this time, I think, but they were tears of pure self-pity. Please, Chloe, she sobbed, reaching for my arm. I pulled away. We're your family. Doesn't that count for anything? We made a mistake. Talk to your grandmother. Just ask her to give us the allowance back. We have bills to pay. The club fees are due. I just stared at her. Even now, standing in the squalor they had allowed me to live in, she was worried about her country club membership. Not a word about how I was. No apology. Just a demand for money. We were family, I said quietly, until you decided a new car was more important than me. You'll fail, Richard spat, his anger returning when he saw that begging wasn't working. You're weak. You'll be back in the gutter within a year. She survived your neglect, Grandma said, stepping in front of me protectively. She survived your greed and your cruelty. She is still standing. She is stronger than you will ever be. Grandma looked at them with an air of absolute finality. Leave, she ordered, and if you ever come near her or contact her again, I will do the one thing I held back from. I will publicly disown you. I will ensure the Sterling name is synonymous with thief in every newspaper in this state. Richard stared at Grandma, then at me. He saw the door was closed, not just the physical one, but the one to our lives. He turned without another word and stomped away. My mother lingered, her eyes wide and pleading, waiting for a last-minute rescue that would never come. When I didn't move, she turned and scurried after him. I watched them go. Then I closed the door, slid the deadbolt home, and turned to my grandmother. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. I took a deep breath. The air still smelled like damp and desperation, but it didn't bother me anymore. "Yes," I said, "I think I am." "Good," she replied. "Now let's finish packing. The movers are on their way." The drive to the lake house was 2 hours north, away from the city and into the Green Mountains. The snow was deeper here, purer. The landscape was a postcard of frosted pine trees and rolling white hills. We pulled up to a large iron gate. I gave the security guard my name. "Welcome home, Miss Sterling," he said with a smile. Home. The word felt foreign and strange. We drove down a winding private road until we came to the end of a driveway, and there it was. The house was magnificent. It wasn't a gaudy mansion like my parents' place, but a large, modern lodge built from cedar, stone, and glass. It had enormous windows looking out over the vast frozen lake, and it was nestled perfectly among the tall pines. My father had bought this with my stolen future. My mother had decorated it with my stolen dreams. I parked the car. Grandma and I got out. The silence was profound. No traffic, no sirens, just the gentle sigh of the wind through the trees. I walked up the stone pathway to the heavy wooden door. I took out the key Arthur Finch had given me. It felt solid and real in my hand. I put it in the lock. It turned without a single catch. I pushed the door open. The first thing that hit me was the smell. It smelled of them. My mother's cloying vanilla-scented candles and my father's expensive leather cleaner. For a split second, I felt like a trespasser. "Go on," Grandma said gently from behind me. It's yours." I stepped inside. The floors were dark, polished hardwood. The ceilings were high and vaulted with exposed wooden beams. A massive stone fireplace dominated the main living area. The furniture was all white, sterile, and untouched. I walked through the rooms in a daze. The kitchen had gleaming marble countertops and appliances that looked like they had never been turned on. I walked into the master bedroom. It had its own private balcony overlooking the lake. I stood there, staring at the perfectly made king-sized bed. This is where they slept. This is where they had their morning coffee while I was sealing my window with tape. A sudden violent surge of anger washed over me. I wanted to smash the pristine vases and tear down the silk curtains. But then Grandma walked in. She went straight to the balcony doors and threw them wide open. A blast of frigid, clean air rushed into the room, swirling around us, chasing out the smell of vanilla and lies. It smelled like pine trees and snow and cold, clean water. "Let the air in," Grandma said. "Let the old out." I stood there in the open doorway, taking a deep breath. The cold air burned my lungs, but it felt cleansing. "I don't know if I can live here," I admitted. "It feels like their house." "It's just a building, Chloe," Grandma said. "A house is just wood and stone. You're the one who makes it a home. So we'll change the furniture. We'll paint the walls. We'll burn candles that you like. This house will forget them. And eventually, so will you." She was right. Over the next few weeks, that's exactly what I did. I had a consignment company come and haul away every stick of white furniture. I donated the proceeds to a local women's shelter. I bought big, comfortable sofas in a deep blue velvet. I covered the floors with colorful, warm rugs. I filled the kitchen with pots and pans and actually cooked in it. And I turned one of the spare bedrooms into a real art studio, with a proper easel and a full collection of expensive oil paints, the kind I used to dream about. One evening, about a month after I'd moved in, Grandma and I were sitting on the deck, wrapped in thick blankets, drinking hot chocolate. Soft, fat snowflakes were drifting down, blanketing the frozen lake in a fresh layer of white. It was utterly silent. "It's so peaceful here," I said. "Peace doesn't make a grand entrance," Grandma replied, watching the snow fall. "Drama is loud, lies are loud. Peace just arrives when all the noise finally stops." I looked at her. In the soft twilight, she looked years younger than she had at that awful Christmas dinner. "Thank you," I said, "for saving me." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "You saved yourself, Chloe," she said. "I just opened the door. You were the one brave enough to walk through it." I looked out at the lake as the sun set, painting the ice in shades of pink and orange. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't worried about tomorrow. I wasn't mentally calculating my bank balance or dreading the cold. I was free. 6 months passed. The snow melted and the lake came alive, a brilliant, deep blue. My life found a new, gentle rhythm. I woke up with the sun, drank my coffee on the deck, and painted for hours. I eventually quit my library job to focus entirely on my art. The town gossip about the great Sterling family implosion was intense for a while, but it faded, as gossip always does. My parents, I heard, had lost their case appealing the trust. They had to sell their house and move into a small condo. My father was trying to work as a consultant, and my mother was selling skincare in a multi-level marketing scheme online. One afternoon in July, a pink envelope arrived. It was my mother's handwriting. I sat at my big paint-splattered kitchen table and stared at it, debating whether to just throw it away. Curiosity won. I opened it. "Chloe, I hope this finds you well. We are finding things very difficult. Your father's health is suffering from the stress. It's so hard for us, but we want you to know that we forgive you for what happened. We are willing to put this all behind us if you are. After all, we are still family. Perhaps we could come up to the lake for a weekend. It's so hot in the city. Love, Mom. I read the letter twice. We forgive you. They still didn't get it. They still saw themselves as the victims. They still believed they could manipulate me with a flimsy appeal to family. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I felt nothing. They were just people I used to know. I stood up, walked over to the fireplace, and tossed the letter into the low flames I'd lit against the evening chill. I watched the pink paper curl, the words "we forgive you" blackening and turning to ash. I never replied. I walked back into my studio. The late afternoon sun was streaming in, illuminating my latest painting on the easel. A large canvas of the lake in winter, powerful and stark and beautiful. Grandma was coming to visit the next week. We had plans to plant a garden. I stepped out onto the deck. The air was warm and fragrant. I leaned on the railing, closed my eyes, and listened to the birds. "I'm safe now," I whispered to the wind. And I was. I had learned that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up for you. And I had learned that my victory wasn't about their punishment. It was about my peace. My victory was this house, this quiet, this freedom. I opened my eyes. The lake was sparkling. The future was a vast, open canvas, and it was all mine.